don't make the cushion dirty. Because washing this is much easier than washing like a whole cushion. Because, you know, in Asia, barefoot, dusty, you come into the temple. It's not like with the Muslims where they wash their feet before they go into the mosque. So then that's why, and it's called the dingwa. So again, it's just this thing about being considerate what you leave behind. So to be reminded of that again and again and again and again. So just in case you were wondering, why on earth is she putting that cloth on?
I was wondering if you want a cushion.
No, I tried everything and nothing is really comfortable. So. But this is the least uncomfortable way. Okay, so let's do a short reflection about what we did until now, and then for whoever wants to take refuge, you can take refuge again in your own words. Yeah. So again, an appreciative mind for being able to be here. That is how, it's a good way to start the day. Taking a few deep breaths and really enjoying that we can breathe. That the air is not too polluted or filled with gas or waste or pollution. That it would make us cough or poison us. That's the outer condition that we're grateful about. It's not so hot anymore, so again we just appreciate it. Doesn't mean that you have to go into attachment. Again, try to close your eyes and try to see if with these thoughts the mind goes in a certain direction. Because then you start to understand the way we think has an influence on the mind. Just this thought, how fortunate we are. We are being fed, we have drinks. None of us has a body that is filled with excruciating pain 24 hours a day that would prevent you from being here. Some of us have bodies with pain, but we can still be here. Some others have no pain, so you appreciate that. We can see, we can hear, we can smell, we can touch, and we can think. From outside conditions we are being exposed to a structured way or a structured method that if you want, you can take it up in order to transform the mind, to become more calm, more peaceful, more quiet, more courageous, more open. But it's also if you are not happy with what we're telling you, you have the total freedom to not accept it. And even to walk out and say, that's not what I wanted, and you just go home. And no big deal. On top of it, we are in a group where everybody who is here wants to develop a good heart. There's no competition. There shouldn't be any fear of somebody hurting you. And it's a group of 20 people, so that's quite rare to spend so much time in a group where nobody is jealous, nobody wants to hurt you, you don't have to compete. You can just be. So again, we appreciate that. So in a situation like this, we can see it's easy for the mind to relax. When the mind is relaxed, it's less distorted, less confused, so it's easier for us to understand certain things. So out of this understanding comes the conclusion or the decision to use the time wisely while we are here. To listen to the teachings, to study the mind, to examine it, what is being said, if that is making some sense, if it's of benefit or not. So maybe most of you don't have a master, don't have a guru, but still, this practice of Buddhism has been practiced since 2,500 years. It has been handed down like from guru to disciple, who then became a guru and passed it on to his or her disciples. So we just try to open up our heart and think of all these beings who have practiced this, who have kept this tradition of non-harming and of mind transforming and mind development alive. Again, out of gratitude. Because you might have noticed already now, this path is not easy. So that has to do with the first verse that we were looking at yesterday. The foundation of all good qualities is the kind and venerable Guru. Correct devotion to him is the root of the path. Mind transformation is very difficult. If you don't have human beings that inspire you that this is possible, we will give up very quickly. That's why it is the root of the path. Also, if you have no devotion to these gurus, when you discover how difficult it is, you will give up. And again go back to doing something less beneficial but easier. So this is why it is the root of the path. By clearly seeing this and applying great effort, please bless me to rely upon him with great respect. Understanding that the precious freedom of this rebirth is found only once, greatly meaningful and difficult to find again. Please bless me to generate a mind that unceasingly, day and night, takes its essence. So here we're actually asking for blessings. So if you're open to that, and if you want to try it out, you can visualize Shakyamuni Buddha in the space in front of you. From Shakyamuni Buddha we have these teachings that were handed down to many what is called lineage masters. And then Atisha composed the lamp for the path, and then Lam October, the Lam Rim. So we're asking these realized masters for blessings. So you can think that these masters represent Shakyamuni Buddha. So you can see that from their hearts, or from Shakyamuni Buddha's heart, light is coming, entering your crown, and getting rid or eliminating all obstacles that we could have for this path. And as the light keeps flowing, then you can think it gives you all the strength, the courage, the knowledge, the determination that you need to continue on this path. Again, if it feels very uncomfortable, then don't do it. But this is a way of receiving inspiration by thinking about Shakyamuni Buddha and all the lineage masters. This life is as impermanent as a water bubble. Remember how quickly it decays and death comes. After death, just like a shadow follows the body, the results of black and white karma follow. So even though our situation is incredibly precious, rare, but is also very fragile. So we appreciate having it. By understanding how difficult it is to get, we see it as very precious. And by understanding that death will come, certainly. The time of death we don't know. We start to look what will help at the time of death. And then you're not caught up in thinking about death, but then you really start to live. We start to have a life so that we can die without regret. So thinking about death has very much to do with how we live now. Finding firm and definite conviction in this. Please bless me always to be careful, to abandon even the slightest negativities and accomplish all virtuous deeds. So again, if you want, Shakyamuni Buddha, who is manifesting, or is a manifestation of all these other gurus or masters, from his heart light rays are coming, blessing us to have the awareness and the strength to abstain from actions that we would have to regret at the time of death, and not only at the time of death, but we would have to regret in our future lives, because they create a lot of suffering. So the light inspires us, gives us the awareness to abandon even the slightest negativities and accomplish all virtuous deeds. And then now, if you are a Buddhist, you can think that you're taking refuge. And that would just go, I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, meaning I trust these methods, meaning I also understand without these methods I will not be able to escape this uncontrolled circling in samsara until I reach full enlightenment. So that means not just for my own sake, not just for happiness now, but until I am free of suffering and the causes of suffering. So by doing that, we strengthen our determination to work with the mind. And at the beginning it is very much just about us, and that is fine. Because as long as we are not well, we cannot be of benefit to others. Then we think, in order to benefit all sentient beings, I will practice the 6 perfections. So I reach full awakening. And then to make the mind or the heart really big and open, we think, may all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. Try to put some substance into that thought, to open up your heart. Wouldn't it be wonderful if all beings had happiness and the causes of happiness? Wouldn't it be wonderful if all beings were free from suffering and the causes of suffering? And wouldn't it be wonderful if all beings would recognize the potential of their mind, that all the suffering that we have is based on a misconception. The misconception of inherent, real, true existence. That we are all living in that dream of inherent existence, so all we need to do is wake up. But until we wake up, we have to deal with the suffering. We have to look what is creating it, not just the main cause, this ignorance, but also karmic actions. And so then, if one starts to understand that, wouldn't it be wonderful if all beings were to live in equanimity. Just recognizing that we are all one big family. We all want the same thing. Nobody wants to suffer, and everybody wants to be happy. There's no need to make these distinctions that we attach to some and averse to others. And most of the people, we totally don't care. So if you want, you can make your motivation for this path bigger, that you think, yes, for me also that I am well. But I want to be really well so that I can benefit all other sentient beings. So that this practice doesn't just benefit me, but it benefits everybody who sees, hears, talks about me or touches me. And if you can listen to the teachings with such a motivation, even you don't understand much because you hear it for the first time, this time becomes very beneficial and very valuable. Because the intention to listen to the teachings is so beneficial and so noble. I want to listen to these teachings, so instead of harming others, I'll be able to contribute to their happiness and well-being. So we are on page 11, in the middle of the third stanza. Stanza is a verse, so sometimes you hear that word stanza. It's Sanskrit for verse. They use it like, I don't know why. Some Sanskrit words didn't get translated. And sometimes it's, when you know the definition of the word, it is easier to just use, for example, samsara is a word that is very often used instead of cyclic existence. Because cyclic existence can also be a plant with fruits who has seeds, they fall to the ground, make more plants of the same kind. That can also be a cyclic existence. So we should actually say suffering cyclic existence, not just cyclic existence, because samsara really means suffering cyclic existence. Why suffering? Because we are under the control of karma, karmic results, karmic actions, karmic imprints that we have, and our negative emotions. This is why we suffer. Not because there are bad people out there, that those are just the contributing factors, but because our mind is under this influence of karma and negative emotions. And you can have a very strong wish not to have negative emotions, you will still have them, as long as the root cause, not recognizing that this I, that seems to exist from its own side as a third entity on top of body and mind, as long as you don't see directly that it doesn't exist, we will have aversion and attachment. It will decrease on the path, that's for sure, but you will still have moments, and then we create karma. So, after death, just like a shadow follows the body, the results of black and white karma follow. So the word karma is used a lot in Western society. Yeah, it's like page 11, the third stanza, or the third verse, in the middle, like the second part of it, the lines, the two last lines. So what we were doing until now is like, do we have what we need? Yes, we have. Will it last? No, it will not last. Now is not what comes next. So what comes next is not just wishful thinking. What comes next is exactly like your garden. You need to, if you want to create a garden, you need to have some idea how you want to create your garden. And then you need to know the causes and the conditions that will make the garden that you want. Otherwise, if you just go to a flower shop and you buy a handful of seeds, because in the seeds you don't know what's going to be there unless you're really, really knowledgeable. This is why they usually put the seeds in a small bag with pictures on it, because nobody is able to see what kind of flowers these seeds will bring. And so then you can make a plan. I want red flowers, I want yellow flowers, I want green plants, whatever. And then you need to plant the right seeds. And with a garden we understand this very well, isn't it? Yeah. I can't read thoughts, so you need to make, if I ask questions, you need to make some signs that it's okay, you understood, or you make a sign, no, I don't understand, and then we'll go more into it. What you also need for your garden is moisture and warmth, because if you put the seeds now or a little bit later in Switzerland, and very soon we have the frost coming, nothing will grow. That doesn't mean that the potential is not there. The potential is there, it's in the ground, but it's frozen, so it cannot grow. That we also understand, that we can see a field in the winter, we have no clue what's inside, only the person who put the seeds inside knows what is there. Okay? Then in the spring it starts to get warm, rain is falling, and then seedlings come up. So again, some seeds might have crept into the other seeds that you don't want. So when you know about gardening, then you know that already quite small, you know that, ooh, these ones I don't want, and these ones I want. So the ones you want, you start to cultivate around them. You start to kind of loosening up the earth, and you're really careful, and sometimes if it's fruit plants, you might want to protect them from, if you live somewhere near a forest, because the deers, they come and eat all these very nice young things. For them it's like their salad. So you will want to protect them, maybe putting some hedge around or something like that. And then the ones you don't want, while they're small, you just pull them out. But if you don't know them, and unfortunately, usually, I don't know how many of you have gardens. Well, here in Israel it's probably difficult because you need a lot of, even more work than in Switzerland, because in Switzerland the water flows by itself. We don't really have to do much about this. So many people have gardens, yeah. So then you are constantly weeding, actually, because you know that the weeds seem to be stronger than the flower seedlings. So if you're not taking care, all of a sudden everything will be overgrown, like here. Yeah, there was, you can see some, at one point there was a plan. You can see the plan, but the plan then wasn't taken care of, like continuously. Only the things were planted and then they left, and then what happens? It overgrows. So it's the same for our mind. If we're not taking care of our positive emotions, and we just let the negative emotions just be the way they are, this is what they're going to do. They will cover up our whole positive side. Yeah. So then we need to learn how to weed this garden. We need to learn what is positive, what is negative. Now when I give you the definition and all this, it is very easy to understand. If you then look at your mind, all of a sudden you go, oh, but is that really anger, or is it just some disturbance that I know now I need to do something about this? Or is that really attachment, desire, or is it an aspiration? All of a sudden you don't know anymore. It's the same like in the garden. Like, I don't understand anything about garden. I love to weed. So if you send me into your garden to pull out the weeds, you need to come with me at the beginning, and you need to show me this yes and this no. If you show me a picture, it's not good enough. So this is what I'm saying. if I give you the definitions of all these mental factors, it sounds very easy. Like looking at the picture, I think, oh yeah, now I understand. I go out and I go like, not sure. Yeah? So this is why awareness needs to come in. A factor of the mind, a muscle of the mind, a factor of the mind that needs to be strengthened, that in most of the people it's very, very weak. Why? Because we're always outside. And we're multitasking. The more you multitask, the weaker that muscle will become. Because then we develop another mental factor that likes to jump from one thing to the other. Zoom, 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 zoom. And that's very pleasant. Why? Because it's entertaining. So the mind is never bored. That is the problem about these things. Yeah? And on top of it, people are become very proud of it. And they don't see how fractured the mind becomes. And then what we end up with is with children or grown-ups that they cannot do one task. The TV has to be on at the same time, or music needs to be on at the same time, or if they listen to something they have to draw. One is not born like this. One develops that. Yeah.
I'm not sure it's right. I mean,
One develops it in one life and takes it to the next life.
some kids
listen what I'm saying.
Okay.
One develops it in one life. If you're like this now, you will be born as these children. Because that's the habit you're carrying.
Children like that.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. Us, we will die. And I'm talking Buddhist now, okay? We will die. We take habits with us into our next life that already come out when we were children. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying these children have developed it in this life. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that these children who are born with that, they have developed it in last lives. So when we hear that, what happens? What goes on in your mind? Oh, I have a chance now not to be born like that if I start to watch my reactions to these entertainment things. This is what I'm saying. And I'm also saying, because it has been developed, it can also be de-developed. This is what I'm saying. We are not prisoners of our habits. But if we go like, I was born like this, what happens then?
You won't do any work.
That's it. That's the way I am. And we don't even try. We don't even try. These habits develop. So they're not from one day to the other. So the same way you have to de-develop them by going slowly. By giving yourself a 1 hour break. You say, okay, 1 hour, no telephone. Even if it goes, yeah? So you go like, it's very hard. But it's possible. If 1 hour is too hard, 5 minutes. If that's too difficult, 5 seconds. This is how you start. Because if you give yourself anti-skid, we forget about the kids because we can't work with them. We only need to learn to work with our own mind. Because the moment you know to work with your own mind, and the moment you see how difficult it is, you start to have more compassion and more patience for the children. Because if you don't know how it is, we go like, just stop. They cannot just stop. The same way as you can also not stop to go like that. Yeah. So then you, 1 second, 2 seconds. With small tasks that we succeed. And if you do this continuously, the habit will change. This is the thing. So karma is not a system of punishment and reward. These children who are born like this now, they're not being punished by Buddha. Okay? The word karma means what?
Action.
Action or intention. Okay? So if you go to page number 7. On the top of page number 7 is refuge. Like when we talk about death and dying, what is always emphasized is if you can take refuge at the time of death, that will close the doors to a rebirth in a lower state, in a lower realm. Okay? Now, refuge means we can just go quickly through it, but I don't want to spend too much time on it. If somebody is thinking of becoming a Buddhist, I would spend quite a lot of time with you to go through that. But if it's just like, maybe one day, but I don't know. And do not think that after one course like this you say, I want to become a Buddhist now. You can only become a Buddhist when you really know what this is all about. Then you make the decision, yes, I want to practice this path. It's not an emotional thing, it's really an intellectual thing. You need to study, practice Buddhism. The Dalai Lama says, at least 2 years. Constant practice, constant study, constant having contact with people who study and practice it. Then you can think about maybe I want to take refuge officially. Yeah? So if you take refuge, you'll see the Buddha as the doctor, you see the Dharma as the medicine, you see the Sangha as the nurses. And then you make certain commitments. This is why it's quite serious. It's not just, you can't divorce, that's it. And they say if you take refuge, this is for the rest of your life, in order to avoid you being more confused by jumping from one practice to the other. Yeah, so you need to know that you want to practice this. I think. So it's not just, you see, if you after one course you go like, this is so true for me and I want this. This is like falling in love with somebody. I love this person, I will love this person for the rest of his or her life. It feels like that. But then because you don't know the practices, you don't know the rituals, all of a sudden you go, all these rituals, I really don't like them. All these prostrations, I really don't like them. Because they're very much part of the Tibetan Buddhist practice. And then you start to have aversion. And then how can you practice something that you're averse to? So your mind needs to be in accord with this. You need to listen to the teachings, you need to examine. Does that sound right for me? Because you see, it's not absolutely right what I'm saying. It's just relatively right. Okay? So when you take refuge in the Buddha, you abandon taking refuge in other objects. And you try to see all representations as the actual Buddha. So we open up another channel. At the moment, our very gross mind only sees pictures and statues. When we start to know Buddhism, you start to see what this is representing, and we start to see compassion and wisdom. Yeah? So then, no matter how the statue looks, this is representing compassion and wisdom. And it wakes up. It touches us on a subtle level. It touches our own goodness. This is why there is so many objects, to remind us of the practice, to inspire us. This is why. There's no other reason. And it makes it very easy to make offerings and to create merit by circumambulating or whatever. If you have no holy objects, what are you going to do? You see, putting the cookies there, if your mind is very strong and you say, I'm offering it to the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, then maybe, but usually not. If you have an object, putting it there, you don't have to be so concentrated, you just put it there. Then of course the more concentrated you are, the better. Yeah? So this is what I mean. And having an altar and doing an altar every morning, and thinking that you're making these wonderful offerings that you imagine to all Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas on behalf of all sentient beings, it makes your mind really wide. And it totally relaxes you. Instead of, my difficult day that lies ahead of me, what am I going to do? It makes your problem so big. And your world and your mind so small. Because when you do that in the morning when you get up, and you become aware of what you get out of meditation, out of practicing compassion, out of studying emptiness, wow, all of a sudden your mind opens. So this is why we have these things, as a help, as a support. So, the light is gone. The wisdom is gone, the ignorance is taking over. It would be nice if we could just switch on the light, you know, in our mind. If you take refuge in the Dharma, you abandon harming others voluntarily. That means if somebody's really nasty to you and harms you all the time, you will still harm back, because this is our unrealized mind, but your mind will not go, I have a right to strike back because they started it. As a Buddhist, this is finished. It's good to harm others. As a Buddhist, it's finished. You will still harm others out of clumsiness and out because of habits, but then you go, oh, shouldn't have done it. Instead of, good thing I hit that person. Good thing I hurt their feelings. That's it. Finished. Nobody deserves to be unhappy. Because with harming others, we're not creating happiness. And you put text in clean and high place. Again, for us, why? It's just the text. No. The text is the methods. How to transform the mind. So the more respect you have for something, the more you get out of it. So this is why, for example, Buddhist texts are always wrapped in cloth. Because you start to see them like your medicine that keeps you alive. Imagine if you have, you're HIV positive or other sicknesses, you have to take medicine regularly. When you go on a journey, where would you put that medicine? In your main luggage or in your hand luggage? In your hand luggage. So this is how we see the teachings. As medicine that saves, not our life, because we can't lose it, because the mind continues, but as medicine who prevents us from suffering. This is why the Dharma is the medicine, and we should treat it like this. And that goes down to text, actually, that we never put on the floor, and we're not sitting on it, we're not stepping on it, and we just treat them in a very nice way. It becomes a habit. At the beginning it's a bit strange. And at the beginning also, please don't feel upset when you don't know about these things, because we don't grow up with that. And you're in a Sangha with Buddhists, and then you have your text on the floor and not on a bag or on a cushion like these two who know how to do it, or also you. Anyway, it's a bit higher when you put it on something, so that can be also more convenient. But some Buddhists, especially Westerners and the Tibetans also, they come along and they kind of pick up that text and throw it into your lap. And if you do, in Dharamsala, that happens quite a lot. So the Tibetans, they really love to show us how not to create negative karma. Because for them, it would be creating negative karma. Why? Because they know that they shouldn't do it. For us, as long as we don't know that we should not do that, we don't create negative karma, because we don't know. It just creates the karma of like kind of, no caring, being careless. Yeah. So don't get upset when they do it. They just want to show you. And also if you do prostrations and you prostrate and you get up with your hands like this or like that or something like that, they will definitely come and criticize you. So I was just noticing this morning in me, whatever I was very arrogant about before, now I've lost all these abilities. Like I was able to prostrate in such a elegant way with the hands flat and come up in one go and all this. Now with the new knee and getting old and being old, I can't do it anymore. I need to go to do in 2 steps, and sometimes I actually need to go like this to pull myself up, because otherwise I don't have enough strength in the arms anymore. Also when I offer the mandala, these people make a mess with the rice and put it everywhere. Now I do the same thing, because I'm not sitting on the floor anymore, and it falls through. Yeah. So I need to have a bowl, and then that bowl is not big enough, and then everywhere is rice when I finish offering the mandala. All these kind of things. So it's nice. So it's nice. No, it's really nice. It shows me my arrogance that I had about these qualities. It's fantastic. So I stopped criticizing others. When you are arrogant about your qualities, you keep criticizing others who don't have it. Where that arrogance goes, you appreciate the ones who still have these qualities, and you don't, others who don't have it, you leave them alone. It's fantastic. It's really good. this whole thing, it just depends on the motivation. Yes, that is true, but it can also go into carelessness. Oh, my intention is very good, so why should I pay attention? So I have to be careful. You see, everything that I'm telling you can become medicine or poison. You can use these wonderful teachings as a perfect excuse not to do anything by saying, oh, but my intention is good. I'm not applying any effort to change. Yeah? And who can judge whether what you're doing is honest or not?
Mine.
Only you. And again, coming back to awareness, mindfulness, seeing what's going on in the mind. Yeah? And it took me 25 years of practice. No, I saw it before that. I was very proud about how I was doing, especially the long prostrations. That's finished. It's totally finished. I look very clumsy and, so it's good. This is when Shantideva says, suffering has one advantage. It takes away your arrogance. That's a big advantage, because arrogance prevents us from learning something. And it makes us horrible people. And if you're arrogant, you also have low self-esteem, because you constantly need to compare with others, and there's this fear that somebody comes along who is better than you. And then instead of rejoicing that they're so good at prostrating, you get jealous. So this is why we don't see arrogance as a big problem, but it is a big problem, because it makes us close to learning new things. Yeah? If somebody who is better than you and you have jealousy, they cannot teach you anything. So on one hand you want their skills, but you don't allow them to teach you their skills because you're jealous. So you don't want it to be them who shows you how to do things. That is your arrogance standing in the way, and you pretend that you know how to do these things, but you don't, and then you're in trouble. Because then everybody thinks you know, and they give you these tasks, and then you don't know, and then you're sitting there. But you feel tense, and overburdened, and whatever. So that's why we put text in clean and high place. Then taking refuge in the Sangha is meaning abandoning hanging out with harmful people and respect the ordained. Hanging out with harmful people, not people who harm you by being not nice to you, but your friends who divert you from your practice, who say, well, you're going to go to the Buddhist group again. Let's go to the movies. Let's go and have a party. Come on, relax. Have a beer. Have a whiskey. Have a joint. Have a this. Why are you so holy? These are harmful people. Your enemies, you can develop compassion and patience with those. They kind of bring your negative karma to ripening. These friends that you have pleasures with, you just exhaust all your positive karma of having a good time. It's another way of looking, totally different. For us, enemies is somebody who harms us. For a spiritual practitioner, an enemy is somebody that I have negative feelings towards. So it comes from my side. I decide who is the enemy, not from that side. Somebody who is harming me can become a very good friend because he makes me practice patience. And if I can develop compassion for that person, that compassion is real. Because it's not based on, oh, well, it's such a nice person. Yeah, we have to go deeper than the appearance of, oh, but it's my friend. And then we start to see that the similarity between the beings, that we're all one family, that we all want the same thing. We start to see, when we let go of aversion and aggression, we start to see the suffering behind their aggression. And instead of being angry, there is compassion. Doesn't mean you should not protect yourself, by the way. You don't need to go out and look for enemies. There are plenty, like worldly enemies. There's plenty of them, not just in Israel, everywhere. Okay, so that's taking refuge. So it's just if in case you are thinking of becoming a Buddhist and officially taking refuge, these are the 9 things that, like 6, isn't it? 2, 4, 6. These are the 6 things. You abandon and you take on. And this is a commitment for life. So just so that you know that.